So this was a puzzle from Clementoni that my parents got me, and I decided to do for fun. You can see at the beginning what actually happened was my family had previously done this puzzle and had put it back in the box mostly assembled. So I lost a bunch of time disassembling the puzzle. Um, this puzzle is tough because the image is of an old map. And what that means is that basically the whole thing is the same color. It's really difficult to see patterns. You've got two sides of a globe, you've got some lines in between them, um, but you don't have an easy, oh, I'm going to grab the greens or the reds first. And so that definitely made this puzzle harder. The other thing is you can actually see the glare from my overhead lighting in this video. So I started working on this at night. I do a lot of my puzzling at night because, jobs. Um, you know, those things. And that means that for those pieces in the center, it's harder to actually see the pattern on top of the pieces. Clementoni is a pretty matte finish, so it's not as bad with Clementoni as it is with some other brands, like Gallison puzzles. And as an example, I hate doing at night because they're a glossy finish, and I really sometimes cannot see the patterns underneath my lighting. I think of this as kind of training on hard mode though, right? I train with really terrible light, and so when I get to competition and the light's terrible, I'm like, no worries. And there's no cat here to interrupt my puzzling. So basically what I'm doing in terms of strategy for this one is I'm trying to pull out the border first and actually do the border. And the border, the top and bottom border, have a line of pieces underneath them that make up some words. So as I'm seeing those pieces, I'm also pulling them and clipping them into the border. You can see it's pretty slow going though. This is after almost an hour of puzzling. I don't yet have the border done. I do have some central lines done, but not really very much compared to where I would expect to be on a normal puzzle. It is actually kind of amazing how much of a difference the lighting makes. And this is an example of a not good lighting situation. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually there's a center line across the puzzle. So I'm building that as well as the border. And my thinking there is that just gives me more to build off of. I like, where possible, having those center lines because then it's also easier to break down the puzzle into different quadrants to work on. You can see though I'm not being very successful. The other thing to call out is that space for 1,000 pieces is often a problem for me on the table that I work on. So you can see it's just a big pile of pieces on the left-hand side. They're not flipped, they're not sorted. It's too hard to flip and sort with the amount of space that I have. I also don't use puzzle trays at home, and that's mostly just because I don't enjoy using puzzle trays, and I puzzle for fun. But also because the reality is I don't really have any place to put them other than the floor unless I'm directly holding them. So it doesn't actually buy me much more space. And it really helps me to be able to see the whole image and to then try to figure out where things go within that image. I find it hard sometimes to work on a puzzle tray and be able to build oh, here's this motorcycle or here's this elephant that I'm building on this puzzle tray. I'm thinking of motorcycles and elephants as puzzles that I have recently done with those elements. And I can tell you, motorcycles are no fun. Too many wheels, too many pipes, no good. And so now what I'm doing in terms of the actual puzzle is I'm pulling out where I can see borders of interior parts. So there are two circles in here that basically are the globe. And so you can see there's a green and yellow. So I'm pulling out that green and yellow border and building it where I can find it. There are also some cutouts that have words inside them. I'm pulling those out and building them as well. And so hopefully once I have those, the idea is I can have them placed and I'm continuing to structure down the puzzle into smaller and smaller chunks. You can already see though that the colors on this puzzle are really a challenge because there really aren't distinctive colors that you can pull and work on. I'm very glad that this is a puzzle I did for fun and not for speed because it would be really frustrating to try to speed this. it's actually kind of funny to me in that now that I have started speed puzzling, I have really strong opinions on puzzles and what's a good puzzle and what's a bad puzzle and what goes fast and not. And they are not at all shared by my friends and family who are not speed puzzlers, who pick based on the image and what they like in the image. And so occasionally they'll bring me a puzzle and be like, why don't we work on this one? And I'll look at it and be like, there is sky, there is grass, there is fur, this is awful. And they're like, yes, but it's pretty. so I always have to kind of train myself to be like, nope, I will not impose my speed bias on everyone else in my life. And this is a good example of one of those puzzles where my parents thought it was a really cool image. It is a really cool image. It just really doesn't work for speed. So as you can see now, I am almost 3 hours into the puzzle. I am still working on getting those globes. My thinking here was that within the globe, you have pretty similar, pretty same colors, but around the outsides of the globe, there are more distinct colors. And by building the globes, I've really narrowed down the bands that I'm going to need to build with those exterior colors, those sort of the richer colors, so that I'm putting myself in a place where I could pull all of that and build around the globes if I wanted to. I did start to see, as you can see a little bit in the puzzle, as I was starting to pull pieces, I did notice the outlines of some of the countries on the map. And so I pulled the pieces that made up Europe and Africa. They were distinctive enough with pinks and greens that they were relatively easy to see. And so I actually pulled them out and built Europe and Africa, even though my initial plan had been to stick with those brighter colors, richer colors on the top and bottom. What's happening now is I'm speeding up quite a bit because I've been able to reduce the number of pieces on the table. With 1,000 pieces, I actually tend to start slow and get much faster because I struggle otherwise to get an overview of the whole puzzle. And so what's happening now is I can see, okay, well, here's what's left in the globe, here's what's left in the top and bottom. And so I'm able to build that much faster. Even just pulling individual pieces and putting them into the puzzle is much faster this way, even if I'm not doing the proper speed puzzling method of, pull all the pieces of this color and build them. You can see the side with North and South America is taking a lot longer because they were much more difficult to see. So we are starting to get some good fill-in now. I think in retrospect, it probably would have been smarter for me at this point to have paused and said, let me fill in that top and bottom. Those are distinctive colors. I decided to keep going on the globe. The reason that probably wasn't the smartest decision is you can see the glare in the middle of the puzzle. I was working on this at night, and that really slowed me down doing the center of the puzzle because the colors were so similar to start with. Plus glare, I couldn't really see any difference. And so you're kind of going off shape. You're doing a lot of testing to see if a piece fits somewhere. And it's just not very efficient. And so, if I had said, well, I'm just going to do the top and bottom because I might come back to this puzzle in natural light, not at 11 p.m., that might have been faster than do the globe in the globe, the sort of hard to see part in the better lighting. Hindsight is 20/20. So you can see here, though, well, you can see that my cat wanted to be involved, and she needed to be pet, and she needed to be bribed off the table with treats, so that added some time. And so now I'm really starting to fill in just whatever I can fill in. I'm just really trying to get those pieces off the table into the puzzle. There's not really a strategy here so much as just put the pieces in really quickly. Every piece you put in is one less piece you have to worry about, and it tells you something new about what pieces can go around it. It's kind of like Minesweeper. So because of that, especially when I'm having space constraints, I tend to get into this just like place everything mode, which is actually not even close to the most efficient strategy. So here we see that I'm finishing up the puzzle. Few pieces left sitting on top of the puzzle that I'm now putting in. And there we go.